Jay, that's my daughter. I don't know how to change what my 8-year-old does to my laptop. So
Oh no, no worries at all. No worries at all. Thank you so
yeah,
much.
absolutely. You can change my name if you know how. I just don't know how. Oh wait,
Oh
here we go.
no.
Wait, hold on. I got it. I got it. I got it. Boom.
Oh no, you good. You good.
I literally at night she'll be like, "Can I use your laptop?" I'm like, "Don't be making me a cat or something crazy now."
Oh no, not at all. Not at
There we
all.
go. There we go.
Yeah. So I'll start off with the introduction and we'll jump right into Q&A because like I said before, we want to be as time efficient, time economic as possible. I
Okay.
know you just got off the set,
I
so
did.
I know you trying to get some breakfast right
All
quick
good.
and just relax. So we didn't want to take up too much of your time, but thank you so much. We're extremely humbled by your presence. You're considered a hero and idol to so many of our young future journalists here in the city of Chicago, and we're just so delighted to have you.
Thank you. That means a lot. Thank you. Thank you. So what
So
age
so
group
join.
what age
Oh,
group am I talking to?
oh, it's a combination of 16 to 20 year old
All
students.
right.
Yeah. So joining us today on behalf of Thornwood High School, SCJR Educational Initiative, out here on the south side of Chicago. She is the greatest journalism student in the proud 170-year legacy of the Medill School of Journalism at Northwestern University. Go Wildcats. She is the legendary co-host of NBC's Today Show Third Hour alongside Dylan Dreyer, Al Roker, and the great Craig Melvin. Please give a huge, warm Southside of Chicago welcome to legendary NBC News correspondent, anchor, journalist, humanitarian,
Oh,
supermom, and the real life version of Wonder Woman,
y'all are the best.
great Janelle Jones.
Thank you so much. That was like the nicest intro ever. Thank you.
With your illustrious career, it makes the intros that much easier.
Oh, please. That was great. Thank you.
And special correspondents on the call. Joining us is Mariah Webster. She is a sophomore honor roll student at the HBCU Howard University. And Miss Janet Martin. She is an honor roll medical student at Southern Illinois University in Carbondale.
Great.
So, without further ado, I know you know your way around Chicago. What is your favorite thing to do in Chicago? Your favorite
Ooh.
restaurant, and uh, whether it be the theater, the arts,
Yeah.
catching a ball game, favorite restaurant, favorite
Goodness.
pizza. What's your favorite thing
Yeah.
in Chicago?
So, when I was in Chicago, I was a student at Northwestern. And so for people
Absolutely.
who don't know Chicago, they're like, oh, it's in Chicago. But for people who know Chicago, they're like, no, Northwestern's in Evanston. So, and then my husband, boyfriend at the time, lived in Rogers Park. So, I will say when I was a student at Northwestern, the highlight obviously was always go to the stereotypical places like the mile, the Magnificent Mile, and go to the shops and stuff like that. Because as a college student, we felt like we were really doing it. I mean, we never bought anything, but just to
Yeah.
be out and to walk around on Michigan Ave, it was just it just makes you feel good. It just makes you feel like you're out and doing stuff. For me, it's interesting. My very first job was in Springfield, Illinois, and so it's not far from Chicago. And I was doing long distance at the time
Mhm.
with my now husband. And I would go to Lake Michigan. There are several spots on the rock along Michigan or along Lakeshore. And I would literally by myself get up Saturday mornings and go out to Michigan Ave or go out to Lake Michigan and sit on the rocks. And that was where I kind of found peace. Like I would just take deep breaths and think about my future. And it was just kind of grounding to me to be able to come back to Chicago and just come back to that area for me.
Mhm.
We were obsessed with Giordano's because they gave us a discount on Thursdays.
Oh, nice.
Of course. There were some places on the south side. I can't remember the name of it. It was a roller rink. I don't even know if it's still open.
Y'all may know Janet and
I don't
Miss
remember what it
Martin.
was called, but we would go out there and really feel like we were doing something.
Oh, was
I
it
don't
on
know.
87th?
I think so. I think so, but I'm not sure.
Mariah or Mr.
I
Kendall
don't
from
know.
Morehouse?
I don't know what my butt was doing out on a Saturday night at a roller rink, but we would do that too.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, I just it's just when I close my eyes and think of Chicago, I just have nothing but warm thoughts. And obviously all the places in Evanston, I was sad to hear about Heckey's
Hmm.
passing. But those were all of our little spots.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's amazing. Wow. Miss Webster from Howard University. I'm gonna pass the microphone to you to ask your first couple of questions.
Okay.
Hi, how are you?
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing good. It is such a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you. Where are you now in this moment?
I'm currently at home in Chicago. Howard is closed down, so unfortunately, I cannot be on campus.
And you're a freshman, sophomore,
I'm a sophomore.
sophomore.
Yeah.
I have nieces and nephews, and they're all at Howard, and they all feel the same way. Um,
Okay, well, that lets me know I'm not alone. So thank you for that. So since I am in college, I kind of want to talk about Northwestern a little bit. What was your course load like?
Northwestern was tough. I mean, it's a good school. And so there was always this balance of, getting the core curriculum, the math and the, English, science, lit. It was a lot of writing, philosophy, all of that stuff. And then Medill, the journalism school, was almost its own little matrix. And so a lot of the journalism students, we had to balance our passion, which was journalism, to just the basic your main subjects. It was kind of a joke that none of us loved math, but we all kind of had to take it. So we all knew, like, all the journalism students knew which math classes to take that would just get us through. They called it math for trees. It was like the easiest math we could find at Northwestern. But I will say, like, looking back, I enjoy all of those other courses outside of journalism, which I think helped kind of develop our education. Like philosophy was a really good one. I took African literature, um, so many classes. I mean, it was just, but it was a lot. They had this thing at Northwestern called the Primal Scream, which is around finals. Everybody, one day would go out of their dorm room windows and like scream. And at the time it was like fun or whatever. But I look back and it was because it was kind of stressful. I mean, it was a heavy course load. But then when we would go back to the journalism matrix and the journalism schools, like everything stopped and we could just be, and we had a, TV network. My work study job also was with one of the leads in the journalism department, one of the professors. And so she would sometimes just not give me work on her end so that I could get my work done, my regular classes done. So it almost became, the journalism school was almost like our safe haven. We had what we called the Black House, which was like the African American student affairs place or something. We called it the Black House. And so we would go there sometimes, and we would go to the journalism school. Like those were kind of my two sanctuaries.
Wow. Well, it sounds like you have been juggling a lot for a very long time. You are excellent, probably, at time management. Who gave you your first break ever in news?
My first break, I would say a couple of people. One, when I was in high school, there was a guidance counselor outside of my high school that I went to who introduced me to an internship program. And so she told me about an internship at like a local access station, kind of like a PBS station, when I was in high school. And I would go after school and intern. And then that next summer, I stayed in that program and I would intern at the CBS affiliate. That really got me into learning about like television news and journalism and broadcast. Like I loved it in high school. And then that professor that I mentioned, who is now one of the deans, but at Northwestern University, she kind of took me under her wing. But as far as like my professional career, there's a news director. He's now like VP. He's some big guy now, like at Hearst or somewhere. His name is Sean McLaughlin. I remember right after I graduated from college, I sent out like 50 or 60 resume tapes, VHS tapes, and I didn't get one call back. And I was going to take a one-man band job in like Beckley, West Virginia. And then I got a call from Sean McLaughlin, this man who was a news director at the time in Springfield, Illinois. and he brought me up there, and I drove up there on the weekend while I was still in school and shadowed or whatever. And he gave me my first job. And I'm so thankful for him because otherwise, it only takes one yes. And he was my one yes. And then even after that, after Springfield, Illinois, I was looking for jobs again. I sent out like another 60 tapes, no callbacks. I called Sean. I said, hey, can you give me some feedback on what I can do? He said, yes, send me your reel. I sent him my reel and he's like, I'll hire you. You want to be a weekend anchor in Tulsa? And I'm like, sure. So then I went from Springfield to Tulsa. So my first two jobs in the business, he constantly would give me a break, and so you only need one yes.
Wow. Yeah. I love that you touched on that because it's so important to put yourself out there and yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, because for those two yeses, it's literally like 87 no's.
Wow.
Wow, yeah. So for somebody who is exiting college, about to start their career, you kind of touched on this when you talked about all of the videos that you sent out. Would you recommend shooting for maybe smaller markets, maybe local news, or would you just say go for it and submit it to all avenues? What would you recommend?
That's a good question. Yeah, I will say, thankfully for you guys, the template is changing. I mean, for us, it was, especially if you want to be a reporter or an anchor, it was, you start in a small city. So I was a one-man band in Springfield, Illinois, and then I was a weekend anchor in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and then 5 p.m. anchor in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and then morning reporter in Philly, and then a morning anchor in Philly. Like, it was definitely like climbing a ladder. But now that I'm here at the network, there are young men and women your age who had a YouTube show and now they're a production assistant. And the next thing you know, they're on one of the new streaming platforms for NBC so there's so many ways now, if you don't want to go to a small city and move your way up, if you will, with all of these streaming networks and streaming channels and digital shows. I mean, all of these older networks are looking for folks like you guys who know how to do it and navigate that world and bring in a younger demographic. So I think there's no template anymore. I mean, for us, we almost felt like we didn't have a choice. We had to start small. I say that, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. Like, I think me living in some of those smaller cities on my own, I'm an AKA, so I would join the local chapters and choreograph debutantes and find a local church and get active with that. All my mom's Link sisters would help me. I was like, I had to find my community in several cities where I would go to these cities and not know anybody. And some of my best friends, some of the women who were in my wedding were from all of these small cities that I lived in. And so by the time I got to Philly, or even now, like, nobody can tell me that I can pay my own bills. I know what makes me happy. I know what makes me sad. I know what I can eat to gain 7 pounds overnight. I know that I have to get on a trip. Like, all these things that I know about me happened when I was in my days single in these cities working as a reporter. So there are pros and cons to it, but the good news is there's no set way to get to where you want to be.
Wow. Thank you so much. I've just taken everything in that you've said, made mental note of it.
Good.
And I can talk all day, but I'm not. I'm going to pass it over to Ms. Martin. Thank you so much.
And Janet Martin, on top of being an honor roll medical student at Southern Illinois University, is also the co-founder of a phenomenal girls mentoring program here in Chicago called Beauty and Brains organization as well. Take it away, Miss Martin.
Hi, Shaneille. I just want to say it's really nice to meet you. I'm also an AKA, so I just want to say hi, Scjr. Yes, and like Stanley was saying, my sister and I co-founded a nonprofit organization here in Chicago called Beauty and Brains. And so we love speaking with influential Black women like yourself because our nonprofit focuses on providing those educational resources and those networking opportunities and just having someone to look to young Black girls as they go through high school, college, graduate school, and on to their professional careers. So it's really an honor to get to talk to you today. So thank you for taking your time out for us. I guess I just want to get started with my first question. Who was your favorite journalism teacher growing up as a kid, and how did they help motivate you?
Ooh. So I never took a journalism class until I got to college.
Wow.
We had a student newspaper in high school. I wasn't really active with the student newspaper because I was a cheerleader, I was a dancer, I was in band, I was student council president. I was like honor society. I was in so much, and I liked to write, but I really liked public speaking. And so journalism was okay for me, but it was almost, in my high school, it was kind of cliquey. And so it was kind of like, if you weren't part of that clique, you weren't, you know what I mean? It was a little harder to break into. So I just kind of did my own thing, and I would apply for different things outside of school and public speaking and what have you. And that internship changed my life, obviously, in high school, because then I was able to be in newsrooms even in high school. So it wasn't until I got to Northwestern journalism school, and there was a black female, one black woman who was one of our professors. Her name was Ava Greenwell. She's still there now. She's writing documentaries there in Chicago. She's phenomenal. You should Google Ava Greenwell and like call her up and like ask her all the questions. She used to be a main anchor in Tampa. And so she was the first woman of color. I shouldn't say first woman, second woman of color that I met that really kind of took me under her wing and made me feel like, okay, if I just listen and pay attention and do the work, that maybe this can actually happen. And again, she was like my boss, because I became her work study student. I would babysit her kids who now come over my house. One of them's at Temple now in Philly. But when I graduated, she got me a scholarship so I could get clothes for my first job. I mean, she really, and I put her kids, they were in my wedding. I mean, it like transcended just a professor. Like she became like a mentor and a family member, like an aunt that I really needed on a campus where there aren't a lot of Black students. So yeah, but it only, like, again, it only takes one professor, one yes, one teacher, just to get you that extra push.
Yeah, no, I love how you spoke on the fact that a Black woman, or the two Black women that really helped you, because that's what our entire platform is based on, and really how we live our lives. The fact that nobody supports Black women like Black women support Black women. So having that person to be there to guide you and help you into your next endeavor is really like meaningful. And so with me running an organization for young Black women, we have like young women who serve in a variety of different career fields. So what advice would you give to an inspiring news journalist, such as one of my girls who wants to make it in the industry?
Is she on now or?
No, well, they're listening, so you can't.
Got it. I think a few things. How old is she?
College aged.
College age. I think the most important thing, in addition to reading everything you can put your hands on, and I guess these days it'd be online, and reading newspapers and watching newscasts, watching local newscasts, watching CNN, watching the, NBC, watching, like, be a student of your craft. I think that's first and foremost. But outside of the craft itself, I think it's the kind of human being that you are that leads to these kinds of opportunities. I think you want to be a person who has an open heart and an open spirit, and to be willing to learn from whatever comes in front of you. I used to intern at BET when I was a sophomore in college, the BET News. And this guy was like, ask for what you want, take what you get, use what you get to get what you want. And I wrote that down, and I give that quote all the time, because that's essentially kind of how you get there, right? So you ask for what you want, you don't always get it, you take what you get, and then you use that to kind of finagle the next thing. And so if you are working, I remember when I was in college, working at American Eagle and then working at Rainbow, and it was like, what does that got to do with journalism? But I look back and it was so helpful. I remember when I was at Rainbow in DC, interning at BET, all of the women that I worked with on Saturday and Sundays were women my mother's age, who were so proud of me that for me, this wasn't it. It was a means to make money to keep going. And they poured into me so much, even just giving me some jewelry. Girl, wear this with your blazer, these earrings, those kinds of experiences. Then when you do become a reporter and you are out reporting, you use those things and those people that you've met to connect with people. And I just think, it's important to keep that in mind. It's not just about taking a microphone and putting it in somebody's face or putting on a cute outfit and being on TV. Like, if you remember that, all the people that you meet and all the experiences that you have, those are all just, intel for you to be a better journalist and a better reporter. Like, if you keep that kind of mode around you, I think that is the kind of energy that leads to success, in my opinion.
No, yeah, I think that was all great advice. I really love the quote about ask for what you want, take what you get, and then use that to get what you want. I think that's something that's going to stick with me and probably everybody here for a while. So thank you for sharing that. just moving on to my last question here. We just want to know, what does a day in your life typically look like? What time does your day start? When are meetings? When do you meet with producers? Just take us through a typical day with you.
That's a really good question. So it kind of depends on what I do. I'm kind of like the utility player on the Today Show, and I do, I host the third hour, but I do all sorts of things. So like this past week, all last week, I filled in for Carson Daly because he was out doing The Voice. So I did Pop Star, which is like our entertainment report. And then a couple of days this past week and last week, Craig Melvin, who does the news reading, he's like the news anchor of the show, he was gone. So then our Hoda was gone. So then I filled in for him, and then he filled in for her. So I'm kind of, sometimes I never know exactly what time I have to come in until the night before. But on an average day, I can get to work as early as maybe 4:30 in the morning and as late as maybe 7, just kind of depending on, what it entails. When I did mornings in Philly, I had to be at work at 3:30 every morning. So for 10 years, it was 3:30 a.m. And going to bed at 7 p.m. So now being here in New York, to not have to get to work until even 4:30 a.m. or 6 a.m., it feels like I have just made it. I'm like sleeping in. So I get here, and things are different now with the pandemic. It used to be, we'd have a morning meeting and we would all meet, and, we would talk about stories and what have you. Now everything is over Zoom, just like this, or phone calls. But most of the time, by the time I come in the morning and I'm getting ready for the show, I already know what's happening. We've been texting all day long. Like already they're texting me for tomorrow's show and Monday's show. So I just tracked a story for this going to air next Tuesday, so you kind of know by the time you come in, with the exception of the news of the day that's happening, kind of what's set. So we do the show. After the show is over, I usually shoot interviews. I used to fly all over the place. Before COVID, I was flying out 2-3 times a week, and then trying to get, like, I would leave after the show, and I would catch like an 11 o'clock flight, try to be on a shoot by like 1 in Memphis or Nashville or wherever. And then I would try to get back home by like 7 so I could see my kids before bed. Like, so there for a while, it was nuts. So COVID in some ways has been a gift, because now I can just do a lot of Zoom interviews, and I only travel for like the big ones. And so I'll do those interviews. I pick up my kids from school now every day. They get out of school at 3, pick them up. I didn't used to be able to do that before COVID. So now I can pick them up. They like it. We come home, half the time I have another shoot, and while they're doing their homework or playing or whatever. Some days I'm doing good to get dinner done. Other days we're ordering. And I'm usually in bed by 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Wow, that is a lot. I cannot believe you woke up, had to be at work at 3:30 a.m. for 10 years.
Yeah, it was a lot. I was like walking around. I had kids at the time. It was rough.
Yeah, I don't think my body would ever adjust. So kudos to you. It really seems like you've been busy since you were young.
Yeah.
So many clubs in high school, working on these jobs. You've been doing great. So thank you for taking the time. That was my last question. I really appreciate you giving us all of this insight. And yeah, back to Stanley.
Okay, and we have a couple more questions. We could keep you on here all day, but I know you got to rest first of all.
Okay. I got 12, 15 more minutes. I seriously would sit down with you guys.
Okay.
As long as you need.
Okay. Amari Kendall, he's a current honor roll junior student at the Morehouse College, HBCU in the house, from Chicago. Amari has a great question for you.
How you doing, Ms. Jones? I just had a quick question, because I was just hearing most of your story, hearing that you worked at BET, Rainbow, American Eagle, like all these different occupations. And I was just curious as to, how people more so focus on the positivity of most of the things, that good things that come out of life, but it's more important to think about the moments where we're at our odds, or we're back against the wall sometimes. So in those moments where you felt like you didn't have any hope, or moments so you felt like there was no like light at the end of the tunnel, like what did you do? What is something you taught yourself, or you like spoke to yourself, affirmation, or someone you look up to that put your mind in the right headspace?
That's a really good question. When I graduated from Northwestern in 2000. I cannot believe it. Now it's 2021. So 21 years ago. And so when I graduated, my first job was in Springfield, Illinois. At first it was fun. I mean, granted, it was hard to wake up at 3 there. I think it was like 3 a.m. And, you're going on these live shots. And so at first it's like kind of cool. And then after a while, like the days get long and then it's like a year. And then you're like, wait, this is, I don't know, this isn't my home. Like, am I going to get another job after this? Like it starts to worry and anxiety kind of starts to rent space in your head. You're not making a lot of money. I mean, you're doing what you want to do, but it's tough. And there were times when I look back, it was hard. I remember I would take a shower. It'd be like 4 a.m. and I'll just cry for no reason. I'm like, why am I crying? I don't know. I'm just tired. It was tough. And then especially when you're like, okay, how do I get another job? Like, so I got this first one. Everybody's like proud of me. Ooh, Shaneille's working in Springfield, Illinois. But then I felt this pressure to be like, okay, so what's next? And it's very hard when you're constantly worried about what's next. So now I know that it's important to just be in the moment and that the good Lord has you and he didn't bring you this far to leave you. I know that. And I know that if you do the work, it will work out. I remember I would fly home to Kansas and Wichita and I would look at, I can't remember what airline it was, and they would have these dots on all of the cities where they would fly. And I remember staring at the napkin and being like, where am I going to be? Am I going to be on that dot Dallas? I'm going to be in that dot Austin? Like, where's my life going? Like, I just didn't know. And at the same time, as a young woman, I wanted to get married. I wanted to have children. Like, I just didn't see how it was all going to work out. And so I remember one of the churches I was attending, they did like a Daniel fast. I don't know if you guys have heard about that, but like where you give up some things around the Lent season. So for me, I remember the first time I tried it, it wasn't about a weight thing or anything. It was about a clarity thing. Like, and I do it now often, not often, but whenever I feel like I'm in a space where I just can't think clearly, where I reel it in. It sounds very silly, but like I like food. And so I would reel in the fat, I would reel in the starches, I would reel in the things that I enjoyed and just try to eat healthy, pray every day, like those kind of things, and put myself in a headspace for 30 days or 40 days. And I have to tell you, every single job that I have gotten in this business came after that period for me. And I didn't realize it until a friend of mine mentioned it to me not too long ago. She was like, remember you would go on your like crazy little spiritual moment where you would just kind of like reel things in and try to put yourself in a clear headspace to think clearly. That's when the breakthrough happens. And I think it's just because, I used to pray, okay, God, what are my steps? Like, help me figure out what I'm supposed to do. And when you keep yourself open and in that clear headspace, you meet people who you don't even know you're supposed to be meeting. You're centered enough to when they say something that maybe you need to know, you write it down, you take that business card and then you call them back a little later. Like literally every time I've gotten a job in Philly or whatever, and the network, it was because I was in a clear headspace. And so I think when you're going through a tough time, you almost have to double down on knowing who you are, whose you are, your purpose, and say, okay, let me get clear about what I need and my intention for myself. And when you do that, I really do believe that the blessings come because you're open to receiving it. And so the stress is rough, but you can use that and channel that to get what you want.
No, thank you so much. I definitely agree.
Definitely. Great question, Amari. Um, have a couple of brief questions on behalf of Thornwood High School. The first question is, um, personally, what was your biggest challenge and coping mechanism dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic this past year? Like you said before, wonderful husband, outstanding kids to come home to, but I just know just navigating through everything between family, work obligations, making sure your family is safe and sound. What was the biggest challenge for you, and did you have a specific coping mechanism getting through the past year?
I think that we still don't know the extent of kind of the stress of it all because we're still kind of living it. We're making the best of it. But I think when we get on the other side of this, we're going to be like, wow, like we've been through it. For me, it was keeping things in perspective has been very helpful for me. We had our health, thank goodness, I never got sick. I have friends who got sick and it was really scary there for a second. I remember one of the most challenging times, one of my best friends called me like sobbing, like guttural sobbing, because she didn't know if her 37-year-old husband was going to make it. And he kept getting turned away from the hospital. I mean, New York was rough there for a second. And so it was almost like a nightmare. Like, it was just like, you couldn't even, you just had to wake up each day and try to stay in the house, that kind of thing. So that was a scary time. And we would just pray through like, we're going to get through this kind of a thing. For me personally, the hardest part was not seeing my grandparents and my family. My grandpa's 97, my grandmother's 92, and I am a
Oh,
grandparent
wow.
kid. And I'm very close to my grandparents. And my grandfather turned 96 on Valentine's Day.
Oh,
And I
wow.
went home to Wichita for his 96th birthday. And at the time, I used all my miles from traveling for work. My husband's like, dude, you go to Paris for all the miles you're spending right now. Because it was like a last minute for me, whim decision to go see my grandpa. And I'm so glad I did, because that was February 14th. And then like a month after that, everything changed. So other than not being able to see my grandpa, and at one point he was in the hospital, and no one could go see him, but he's home now and he's fine. I will say for me, I almost, hesitate to say it, but the silver linings, the pros outweighed the cons for me, in that the time I was able to have with my family. I mean, as you guys hear, I have been hustling since I was 16. And so to be able to do the show from home, it was stressful, I had a light ring and like, the kids are running in the background, all that crazy stuff. But at the end of the day, I was home. Like some moms are like, oh man, I got to make breakfast. For me, it was a blessing to be able to get up and make breakfast, because I'm not usually home. My daughter, I could do her hair. It wasn't a hot mess that day because I'm actually home. My husband didn't have to do it. Picking them up from school, having to quarantine, the whole world stopped. So we weren't missing anything. I cherish those days. I almost hesitate, when things do open back up, am I going to have to start traveling all over the place again? I mean, they're only little for a little bit. And I have really enjoyed being with my family, like my immediate family. It's been such a gift.
Speaking of birthdays, a certain somebody is about to celebrate their 21st birthday coming up,
Okay.
which is you. Do you have any specific plans on April 19th, I
That's
believe?
funny. You've done your homework. That's impressive. So yeah, I turned 43
No
on
way.
April 19th. 43.
No
And
way.
I am one of those women who I will always tell you my age. I remember early on in the business, a woman pulled me aside and she's like, you gotta stop telling your age, because when you get older, it's harder to get jobs and what have you. And in my head, I said, okay, but I was like, that doesn't feel right to me. Like, you see old men, gray, they barely holding on anchoring the news. And it's like,
Mhm.
no, it is a blessing to be 43. I am happy to be here. That we were talking about COVID. There are people who didn't make it. You
Oh
know what I
man.
mean? Like, there are women who would love to hit their 40s healthy. You know what I mean? So I embrace all my years, and I'll say it, Lord willing, until I'm 197.
Mhm.
Um, I don't really have any plans because it'll be another COVID birthday.
Yeah.
Everybody keeps saying, like, don't you want to go out, have a party or something? I guess post COVID, I'm a while out. Like one of these days, we're gonna have a big old party. I'm gonna bring
Mhm.
some lights in my yard. We're not there yet, but I'm gonna have like for all the years that we've had COVID parties, or where we weren't able to be out with people. But for me, an ideal day, honestly, is for me not to have to cook. Maybe go to a restaurant with the family, if that's safe, or cook out and just be together with people I love. Like, I'm pretty easygoing. I think it's because for my job, we're wearing makeup and doing hair, and it's big. And so then when I want to relax, it's the opposite of that.
Yeah, definitely. Um, we have one more question, and then I'm looking at the shot clock at the top, and we running out of time, unfortunately. Unfortunately, yeah. One thing about Zoom, you don't mess with their shot clock. When it's triple zeros or quadruple zeros, it's
I'm
done.
about to cut you
Like,
off.
they
Exactly.
don't care if you're in the middle of a sentence, verb, phrase, anything. But I'm gonna sneak in this one last question. What interview made you the most nervous?
A really good question. I saw that. I'm good when I can prepare. I've interviewed some big folks, but as long as I have my notes with me and I take a breath and I can connect, I'm good. When I get nervous is when we have breaking news and we break into programming, and you get that, this is an NBC News special report. my heart does all like a Simone Biles action inside. Like even now, like
And then that iconic NBC News breaking news,
like the swoosh.
it's something
I mean,
big. Yeah.
Yeah, that is when I have to like try to stay in my body. Even now, God, was it like a month ago? I had to break into programming. I can't remember what it was. I don't remember what it was. It might have been before. I don't know if it was Trump related. I don't remember, but I just know that when you break in to programming, and that means whether you're in LA or whatever, you're watching your soap operas, you're watching your cartoons, it all stops because this is happening. That's when I get the most nervous, because usually that means it's happening and there's nobody to say, okay, Shaneille, this happened. You got to know your stuff. And so that is when I get nervous, because then you don't really have a net. You have to stay in your body, stay clean. This has been a special report, and Lord, hurry up and get out of here and go back to your soap opera. Like some people love it. They want to go vamping on. I'm like, no. Here's what's happening. Don't now back to your regularly scheduled programming.
One thing I know, don't be messing with people's days of our lives at all.
That's what I'm saying. Like, I just feel people like, what? Yeah. So you break in, you get it. And my heart is always like, and it's very hard to speak and sound whatever when your heart's going
Definitely. Please, the next time you and your family are in Chicago, please let us know and visit us at the school. Please do. Chicago loves you.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I was gonna post a picture or post or something. Should I just take a picture of the three of us? Is there anybody? Where's your other girl? Like anybody? I'm willing to take.
I can